From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. In just hours, it will be 2021 and marijuana will officially become legal for recreational use here in the state of Montana. But before that new law goes into effect, MTN's Andy Johnson joins us with some things you need to know.
A lot more than just the year changes between today and tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, marijuana will be recreationally legalized in the state of Montana.
Imagine people will probably have, some amount of people come into all the stores ready to buy. But yeah, we can't do that, so.
Recreationally legal starting January 1st, but only two things take an immediate effect.
Any individual will be allowed to grow a certain number of plants in their house and have a certain amount of product on them at all times.
So you can grow it and possess it. But a lot goes into growing the cannabis plant.
In Montana, you're going to be primarily in an indoor situation, especially in the winter time. So you're going to need things like supplemental high-intensity lighting or LEDs, some type of watering apparatus. It's some work.
As for when it will become available for purchase, it could be years.
Probably not going to be until 2022 when the licensing goes into place. So we're kind of in a weird area right now where it's legal to possess, but it's not legal to purchase, and so there's a lot of uncertainty.
But with new laws comes new responsibilities.
No, there will be limitations to what people can do, and it'll be up to the legislature to make sure that they effectively regulate that in order to maximize tax revenue and public safety and public benefit, and without risking the public's health.
The biggest takeaway to understand is that it is a process, and processes take time. Reporting in Bozeman, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
Now, Montana, South Dakota, Arizona, and New Jersey all voted to legalize adult use of recreational marijuana in November's election. Now, tonight, Montana's death toll due to COVID-19 related illness has risen above 1,000 as the state has reported 19 deaths today. Cascade County reported the most new deaths with 12, bringing its total to 107. Dawson County saw 3 new deaths today. Park and Gallatin counties recorded 1 each. The state's death toll now stands at 1,006 with a case count of more than 82,000. More than 200 patients remain hospitalized with the virus. Police in Billings continue to investigate a shooting that is now classified as a homicide. Billings police say that a 39-year-old man from Mississippi has now died after being shot early Sunday morning. Police found the man in the front yard of a home in the 2800 block of 3rd Avenue suffering from a gunshot wound after receiving calls about a disturbance with shots fired. No arrests have been made, and police are asking anyone who might have information to give them a call. And yesterday, we told you about the death of former longtime Billings Police Chief Gene Kaiser, who passed away last week. We incorrectly reported that his funeral is this coming Saturday, and that's not the case. It's actually going to take place Saturday, June 19th at 11 a.m. at First Baptist Church. The family's holding off having the service until then, and we apologize for that error. Well, many people will ring in the new year with a drink or two, and law enforcement wants you to know they're well aware of that. They're asking everyone to celebrate responsibly or be prepared to face the consequences. Extra patrols will be out in some areas looking for impaired drivers. Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton asked people to use common sense before getting behind the wheel. This year, with bars scheduled to close before midnight, Dutton's concerned they may see more people on the roads after drinking.
We're starting to see people that, okay, you can't be in a bar, so let's get in the vehicle, have a couple beers, and a couple turn into a couple more, and generally you'll do something that will attract our attention.
Well, fireworks are part of a lot of people's New Year's celebrations, and while they are not legal within the city of Billings, they are legal in Yellowstone County. Lockwood Fire Chief John Staley spoke with Q2's Chris DeRose earlier today about a few things people can do to stay safe while bringing in the new year.
The basic safety things are obviously don't shoot them indoors. Don't know why I have to say that, but I do. And that's because of the next statement. Typically, the type of fireworks or people that shoot them on New Year's Eve are the type of people celebrating a new year, and we tend to do that with alcohol. Don't try to put them in a container, whether it's a can or a bottle. Keep them away from your body. Don't ever aim them towards yourself or throw them at anybody else. And then obviously, because it's been a really dry winter, and this is unusual to say, if you are shooting them outdoors, make sure you have some water source nearby or extinguishing source because the grass out there is really, really dry. The other thing is, be mindful of your neighbor's property, your neighbor's animals. I realize it's a form of celebration, but especially dogs have really sensitive ears. And if you're shooting them around people that have dogs, of course, it scares them. If you have dogs yourself, try to put them in a safe place, like a basement. Keep them away from the noise for what little brief time you're going to shoot them. If you have children, we ask, of course, monitor them. Sparklers, while they seem safe and somewhat simple, they're made out of metal rods, and they leave tremendously deep burns. Have a happy and safe and healthy new year by just being practical when doing this. And by all means, call us if you need help. That's what we're here for.
Well, there's more important advice about fireworks safety in this story on KTVQ.com. From New York to London, around the world, millions are welcoming 2021 after a year most everyone wishes had never happened. CBS News correspondent Nancy Chen is in Times Square with the latest.
These empty streets would normally be packed with 1 million revelers in the hours before New Year's Eve. This was last year. Compared to now, a desolate Times Square with just a smattering of tourists to capture the moment.
It's weird. It's not what I would expect.
I'm more used to seeing it, packed with tourists and whatever, and to see it as like a ghost town is definitely odd.
COVID loves a crowd, so there won't be one here. The mayor says enjoy the festivities from the safety of home.
Avoid large gatherings tonight. Keep it small, keep it simple. Stay home, stay close.
Some traditions will go on. The New Year's Eve ball is in position for the midnight drop, and a special program will honor the heroes of 2020. Police are on patrol to break up any crowds, only allowing a select group of frontline workers. They'll be here with their families, all socially distanced. It's the same story around much of the world, including the hard-hit UK.
See in the new year safely at home.
Australians watch the fireworks from home. But nearby New Zealand was one of the few places where thousands could ring in the new year together since the country successfully contained the pandemic. In Japan, bells rang in 2021 at this temple in Tokyo. Most stayed home after the city reported more than 1,000 new cases in one day for the first time, while large crowds gathered in Wuhan, China, where the virus began its first destructive sweep nearly a year ago. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
Well, the Times Square New Year's ball is 12 feet in diameter, and it weighs more than 11,800 pounds. It's covered with more than 2,500 Waterford crystal triangles. Well, if you've been on the rims to see the teepees that have been up there, you may also notice the rocks that now surround each one of those 7 teepees. Q2's Shaquille Cozart finds out more about what they symbolize.
The 7 teepees that line the rims, which honor those who have died due to COVID-19, are now surrounded by rocks and stones decorated with names, pictures, and stories. These rocks and stones were placed by people in the community as a way to honor the loved ones lost.
This was from Winnipeg, Canada, a friend of mine, but he's from South Dakota, Pine Ridge. And it's an honor for me to put this down for him. He's had a loss in his family and struggling with the trauma of that. So it's a good way to honor them.
Snell says that each one of the many stones placed around each teepee gives people or families an opportunity to start healing.
Each one of those stones represents a family, and I think it's really important. It's just not a number, it's just not a statistics. It's a story about their family and a loss of a loved one.
Snell says that he is happy that people from all walks of life, ethnicities, and races have come together to help honor those who have died due to the pandemic. He says the last day to view the teepees will be January 2nd, and teardown for them will start on January 3rd. In Billings, I'm Shaquille Cozart with MTN News.
Thanks, Shaquille. Well, affordable housing has always been an issue here in Montana, and it seems to have taken on added importance during the COVID-19 pandemic. With a budget-conscious legislature set to convene in just a few days, MTN's Tim McGonigal introduces us to a statewide group that's tackling the problem.
Since 1990, Montana rents have increased 26% compared to 16% nationally. Homeownership rates in the Treasure State have dropped from 70% to 67% since 2006. And nearly 30,000 Montana homes are in poor or very poor condition. The Montana Housing Coalition is a policy-making group of developers, communities, and agencies dedicated to changing those statistics. One place they plan to be heard is the 2021 legislature, starting with an effort to increase the coal tax loan fund by $15 million.
That first $15 million was expended in 7 different projects across Montana in the first 6 months of it being available. So we know that there's a huge need for additional funding to create these homes and apartments that are affordable.
The MHC is also hoping for establishment of a state housing tax credit. It would be for investors putting money into housing projects, something Rice says will be helpful in a COVID-challenged budget year.
But when you look at the ability of creating a tax credit, which immediately starts construction of developments for apartments all across Montana, rural and urban, yet the economic impact on the state budget is not felt for 3 to 4 years later.
Finally, the MHC will be advocating for opportunity to purchase legislation. It would give residents of manufactured home communities the chance, as a cooperative, to purchase the community if it goes up for sale, assuring justified lot rent increases.
If that rent goes up too fast, if there's other consequences happening to the land, maybe deferred maintenance, then the value of their home is decreased. And they could also actually be displaced because they can no longer afford a higher rent.
Rice says there are currently 15 resident-owned communities in Montana. In Great Falls, Tim McGonigal, MTN News.
Well, Montana's minimum wage will go up tomorrow. The minimum wage will increase by 10 cents per hour to $8.75. The Department of Labor and Industry estimates the increase will impact between 8,000 and 10,000 workers. That's about 2% of the workforce here. Montana's minimum wage is adjusted annually based on inflation as a result of a 2006 ballot initiative that was passed by Montana voters. Still ahead here on the MTN 9 o'clock news on the CW from a historic election night. It's still being contested to a pandemic that flipped debate stages virtual. We're going to look back at the top political stories of 2020. But first, Bob McGuire ready to deliver his final forecast here on the CW. Weather's coming up next.